SI unit assignment, the last three questions were the doubts. Question 23, 24, and 25. In this question, the student has been given the equation EV is equals to HF minus phi. Explain why the graph of V against F is a straight line and how the gradient can be used to find the Planck's constant. What is the Planck constant here? The Planck constant is H. So we want to plot a graph between V and the frequency F. So if you want to plot a graph between V and F, it means the quantity which we plot on y-axis should be separate because we want to compare with the equation of straight line. We want to compare with equation y is equals to mx plus c. So we have to rearrange this equation so that this equation, what we plot on y-axis should be separate from others. So EV is equals to HF minus phi. E is multiplied here, other side it will be divided. So this equation modified, as you can see, this E is multiplied with V. So it will be divided. So V is equals to HF divided by E minus phi divided by E. So now we will compare with the equation of straight line. What is the equation of straight line? Y is equals to mx plus c. So on y-axis, if I plot V, as you can see on y-axis we have V. On x-axis, if we plot F, because we want to plot a graph between V and F. So on y-axis we have V, on x-axis we have F. What is left other than x is a gradient. So what will be the gradient? The gradient will be equals to h divided by E. So h is constant and E is also constant. E is a charge of electron. So this is constant, h is constant, and E is also constant. So when we divide the two constant, the gradient will be constant because like the values are not changing. So when you divide them, the gradient will be constant here. So as the gradient is constant, it will be a straight line. So first thing, we have to show that the graph between V and F is a straight line. So why it is a straight line? Because when we rearrange the equation according to equation of straight line, which is y equals mx plus c. On y-axis, we have V. On x-axis, we have F. So what we are left with? We are left with h over E, where h is a Planck's constant and E is the charge of electron, which is also constant. So when we divide these two constants, we'll get a constant gradient. That's why it is a straight line. So answer here, when you'll mention gradient is equals to h over E, which is like h is constant, E is constant. So the ratio between them will also be constant. That's why it is a straight line. The second, how we can use and how the gradient can be used to find the Planck's constant. So how I can find the Planck's constant or value of h? So gradient is Planck's constant divided by E. If I need Planck's constant, if I need h, so E is divided, other side will be multiplied. So gradient multiplied by E will get the Planck's constant. In question 24, to determine g, the acceleration due to gravity, the student uses the equation v square equals u square plus 2as. Explain why a graph of v square on y-axis and the distance on x-axis should be a straight line to the origin. So basically, when we drop an object, what is the starting speed? The starting speed is 0. And falling objects always have the acceleration due to gravity. So acceleration will be equals to g, which is equals to gravity. Where v is the final speed and s is a distance or a displacement of this object. So we want to plot a graph for v square against s on x-axis, v square on y-axis. And we want to show that when we plot this graph, it will be a straight line which is passing through origin. So how we can show this? So first, for this equation, u will be 0. Why u is 0? Because the object is dropped from certain height, so initial velocity is always 0. So if this was the initial equation, v square is equal to u square plus 2as, but as the u is 0, so the equation will turn into v square is equals to 2, and because this factor is 0, so like v square is equals to 0 square plus 2, and acceleration is due to gravity for the falling object, which is 9.81. So we can say g, and the distance it fall, that is equals to h. So this equation turned out to be v square is equals to 2gs. Now when we compare with the equation of straight line, which is y is equals to mx plus c. So on y-axis, if we have v square, on y-axis we have v square. On x-axis we have a displacement, that is a displacement. So what is the gradient of this graph? The gradient is equals to 2g. And what does it means gradient equal to 2g? Because 2 is constant, 2 a constant number multiplied by acceleration due to gravity, which is also constant. So when 2 is multiplied with any constant, the final answer will also be constant, like fixed answer. It will be independent of what is the speed and what height we drop this object. That's why it will be a straight line. And how we know it is starting from origin? You can see the y-intercept, there is no y-intercept, or y-intercept is equals to 0. So gradient is constant and y-intercept is 0. That's why it will always be a straight line which is passing through origin when an object is dropped from certain height. And the last one, in an experiment to measure the viscosity, which is eta here, of a glycerol, the steel sphere, the steel spheres are time falling through a column of a glycerol. The equation is there, V is equals to 2r squared g, the difference in the density divided by 9 eta. Explain why the graph of V on y-axis and r square on x-axis should be a straight line with a gradient. So why it should be a straight line? So you have to show that the gradient should be constant, because if a gradient is constant, it will always be a straight line. So what we are plotting V on y-axis and we plot r square on x-axis. So this is the original equation. If I rearrange the equation, that V, because equation of straight line y is equals to mx plus c. So quantity which we plot on y-axis should be separate. It is already separated. V is already separate. Then the quantity which we plot on x-axis, that is just after the equal to with a gradient. So we are plotting r square on x-axis, so we should just move it towards right. So it will be 2g, the difference in the density of a sphere and the glycerol, divided by 9 eta and then r square. And nothing is added, so this plus 0. Now, when we compare this with the equation of straight lines, so on y-axis, if I have v, on x-axis, if I have r square. So what is the gradient? What we are left with, that is all gradient. So gradient is equals to 2g, the difference in the densities, divided by 9 eta. How this gradient will be constant? 2 is constant, 2 does not change. The value of the gravity also remain constant. The density of an object remain constant at a specific temperature. The viscosity also remain constant as a specific temperature. And 9 also is a constant. So all are the constant. So it means the gradient will be constant. So if the gradient is constant, it will always be a straight line. And there is no y-intercept. You can see like nothing is added in this equation. So there is no y-intercept, or y-intercept is equals to 0. So when we plot a graph between v and r square, it will always be a straight line which is starting through the origin. So the simple rule to solve such question is the quantity which you plot on y-axis should be on your left hand side. The quantity which you are plotting on x-axis should be after the equal to, with other variables or constant which can be used as a gradient. And then what is added or subtracted with the value at x is refers to a y-intercept. If nothing is added or subtracted, it means the y-intercept is 0. If there is addition or subtraction, then it might have a positive or a negative y-intercept.